60 and above, placing the country among those with the fastest growing elderly populations in the Asia-Pacific region. And this trend is also evident in Davao City, where the aging population continues to rise, reflecting not only national but also regional pressures to provide environments that support aging well. And at the same time, with the declining birth rates and increasing life expectancy, extended family caregiving, or for those elderly who have children or grandchildren to take care of them, is becoming less reliable. So this places greater pressure on care environments to take on a more active role in elderly care. So in response, architecture has long relied on established accessibility standards. However, these remain largely centered on physical features and technical compliance alone, with limited consideration of how older adults actually perceive and experience their surroundings. So for me, this raised the concern, can the environments designed for older adults actually support their independence as their needs change over time? So it is within this context that the present study is framed. Accessibility is approached as a multidimensional construct encompassing four interrelated dimensions that are distinct yet overlapping with one another through the following indicators. So this multidimensional understanding of accessibility became the foundation of my design line research. So the study is grounded in Lawton's person-environment fit theory, which suggests that independence depends on how well a person's abilities align with the demands of their environment. So if too much of environmental pressure or stress upon an individual, or in this case, it's older adult residents in geriatric care facilities, is this can overwhelm them, or if too supportive naman siya for them, is this limits their autonomy by making them learn to be more dependent na lang sa kanilang surroundings. Therefore, the best outcomes occur when there is an appropriate balance between personal competence and environmental demand. So to understand how this works, the study examined three key variables. So first is actual accessibility, or the objective conditions and accessibility features present on the environment itself. And second is the mediating variable, which is the perceived accessibility, or how residents personally experience, interpret, and respond to their environment. And lastly is the dependent variable, which is functional independence, or the resident's ability to perform meaningful daily activities independently. So the study uses a mixed methods approach, and it explored not only what the environment provides, but how it is perceived and how it shapes everyday independence. So to measure these variables, I use three complementary tools for data collection. So first is the Environmental Accessibility Audit Tool, which is a 169-item researcher-developed observational checklist. So dahil researcher-developed siya, kailangan siya i-validate. So I validated it through experts such as occupational therapists, physical therapists, and also licensed architects, since sila ang mas knowledgeable when it comes to geriatric care and accessibility na provisions. Then to measure perception is the Perceived Environmental Accessibility Scale, which is a survey questionnaire. So since the participants of the study is mga older adults, I've opted to use a 5-point Likert scale survey for them to much easier comprehend and understand the questionnaire. And lastly, to measure functional independence is the Canadian Occupational Performance Measure. So this is a globally known and standardized client-centered interview which measures functional independence through self-reported occupational performance. So the study examined 135 residents across 4 licensed geriatric care facilities according to this ng DSWD in Davao City, which captures a range of environments as well as levels of independence. So from the collected data, several analyses were conducted, beginning with a comparative analysis. So across facilities, varied ang kanilang results, maski all 4 facilities are licensed. So this suggests that compliance alone does not guarantee equal levels of accessibility and support. And then across residents, the findings also show that the same environment does not support everyone equally. So particularly those with greater mobility needs, or those that nag-use ng mobility aids such as canes, walkers, and wheelchairs. So moving on, a correlational analysis showed that there are strong positive relationships to variables. So first, the more accessible the environment was, the more independently residents were able to function. And second, the more accessible the environment was, the more accessible residents also perceived it to be. So this not only validates also reinforces the central premise of the study that architectural accessibility does directly shape the lived independence of older adults. So since na-establish na ang relationships ng variables, we can then move on to the mediation analysis. So this was conducted to determine whether perception can act as a bridge between the built environment and the resident's independence. So results show that an accessible environment alone was not enough. Perception accounted for approximately 35% of the total effect on functional independence. So even if accessibility features may be physically present sa kanilang environment, if residents do not recognize, understand, or feel confident in using them, their ability to support independence may still be limited. So with these, the next step was to translate the findings into something more meaningful for design. So I returned to Lawton's theory to examine whether there was actually a balance between what the environment provides and what residents are capable of doing based sa nag-gather na data. So for this, I developed a metric to compare environmental support with each resident's level of independence. So overall, the results showed na varying levels of over-support and under-support. So one big example for this is si Facility B. So si Facility B kasi, siya ang nakascore ng highest sa compliance checklist. So among the 4 facilities, siya ang pinaka-compliant sa mga accessibility standards and provisions. However, residents see their environment as something na under-supportive para sa kanila. So this means that high accessibility compliance does not guarantee balanced support sa kanilang users. So this also reinforces the mediation analysis mentioned earlier. The perception does affect functional independence, and also reinforces that what exists in the environment may not always align with how residents experience and use it. So the same goes across the different zones or spaces, and also across participants, which highlights na iba-iba talaga ang functional capacities ng each resident and ang need nila for support for independence. So given these mismatches, the next step was to ask, what should the environment actually aim for? So since kanina is based more on the existing conditions, this metric naman is to see how much potential does the built environment hold if mag-align yung capacities and perceptions ng residents sa kanilang environmental demands. So overall, the findings shows that while current standards already extends coverage beyond existing conditions, there still remains greater potential when the built environment is aligned with the residents' perception. So similar findings can be seen across communal spaces, living quarters, toilet and bath facilities, and outdoor spaces. Therefore, aging cannot be addressed through static, one-size-fits-all environments. It calls for environments that are responsive, perceptible, and adaptable, capable of supporting independence as it evolves over time. So in response to this, the study proposes its main recommendation framework, which is the progressive continuum of independence. So this is where environments are supported and structured to support varying levels of ability and capacities rather than only one single condition. So this framework grounds the project, organizing space from community to neighborhood and to home. So from there, the 4 dimensions of accessibility were operationalized into spatial design variables. So these were then applied to an order of prioritization beginning with spatial planning. From there, this then informed the design guidelines and recommendations across different scales, which allows multidimensional accessibility to be integrated from the overall environment down to the most personal scale of daily life of the residents. So these guidelines became the foundation of my proposed project, which is an 80-bed residential care environment for older adults, positioned at a mid-size scale government-supported model of care. For the users and stakeholders, the project primarily serves older adult residents and their families, and is supported by care staff and operational personnel in accordance with DSWD's Administrative Order Number 15. So the project is situated on a 2.4-hectare site in Catalunya Grande and is selected based on the appropriate scale for the facility and environmental conditions that align with the study's findings, gaya ng orientation, circulation for essential services, and noise levels in surrounding areas. So for the form finding is mag-start talaga yan sa computations based sa code to define the buildable area. And then I introduced anchors, serving recognizable visual references to help residents understand where they are within the facility. Then from there, the mass was broken down into smaller neighborhood clusters designed to accommodate varying levels of independence and support needs. Therefore, the facility serves as a series of interconnected environments, reinforcing both community and individuality within the care setting. So one of the main findings is that the older adult residents wants a space that feels familiar. Therefore, the facade or the main design of the care facility is leaning towards a residential architectural character inspired by Filipino domestic environments to lessen the institutional and clinical feel. So here are some of the additional form studies and considerations that shape the development of the center. And in doing so, accessibility is not treated as an addition, but it is embedded within the site itself. So for the care facility, spatial planning was structured to create a clear gradient of access, which maintains continuity in routines and limits unnecessary exposure to unfamiliar visitors. The spatial adjacency zoning was also guided by the findings, which arranges key spaces to improve efficiency, reachability, and ease of movement. The plan also reflects the application of the progressive continuum framework where support is distributed across the space to sustain independence throughout the environment. Movement patterns were also considered in the spatial arrangement by studying how residents move through their daily routines, ensuring that spaces are connected according to their actual patterns of use. Then these patterns then informs the placement of the social nodes and landmarks, which acts as points of pause, interaction, and orientation. Then those social nodes then inform the placement of the supervision zones, which are positioned based on visibility and lines of sight. Safety and emergency movement were also considered with evacuation routes, assembly points, and patient transfer routes planned to ensure clear, direct, and efficient movement during everyday care and emergency situations. The environmental strategy was also driven by site orientation, which responds directly to the sun and prevailing winds to optimize natural light, ventilation, and thermal comfort throughout the facility. So I've also integrated a wayfinding system through accessible signages around the facility, but since aging may come with changes sa kanilang vision and comprehension, wayfinding should not rely on signage alone. So I've embedded it sa environment through landmarks, lighting, and material transitions that guides movement into delivery. So in this way, the environment itself becomes the primary wayfinding system. So since residents have varying capacities and different support needs based on findings earlier, each resident profile was matched with a neighborhood that provides the appropriate level of support while preserving as much independence as possible. So this led to the 3 neighborhood clusters. So as residents age and their needs change, they can transition between neighborhoods within the same familiar environment rather than having to relocate to a whole new different facility. So each neighborhood cluster still follows the core design principles mentioned earlier when it comes to spatial planning, but each neighborhood has their own design priorities depending on the type and level of support needed. So first, we have the mobility-supported neighborhood, where spaces are arranged for goal-oriented movement. Then, the cognitively supported neighborhood, which is calibrated to prioritize clarity and recognition. And the comprehensively supported neighborhood, where the environment is further calibrated to provide a higher degree of guidance. So the project also provides different living arrangements, recognizing that some residents may benefit from a private living, while others may prefer shared options for companionship or financial considerations. However, regardless of their room type, their care and daily needs remain equally supported by the facility, since this is a government-supported model of care. Then, they also have levels of personalization for their own personal needs. So there are fixed elements for safety, as well as they can add personal elements or personal items to express their identity and memory into their own space. So to bring all of these together, here is a quick video walkthrough.